Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and I just had the pleasure of sitting down with Nick Bentley from Underdog Games. They are the developer behind Trekking Through History, the more recent Her story that just released, and he was kind enough to sit down and talk to me about these games, about any upcoming games, about game development in general. So I just wanted to quickly shout out Nick for, a great time. For those of you that don't know Underdog Games, go check them out as well. If I remember, I'll put a link in the below description. If you want to learn more about trekking through history, as you can see, I've got a YouTube video out there. If you haven't seen it yet, you may want to. Again, if I remember, I'm old. I'll put a link in the below description for you. I'll just go ahead and just show you the interview, and if you guys haven't already, subscribe. That way you can stay up to date with any new content I happen to publish. All right, on with the show.
I'm good. How are you? I'm so sorry about that. We have all these like back to
Oh,
back.
don't worry about it. It's fine. Can you see me and hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. I
Okay,
can.
great.
Very cool.
So you're Nick Bentley, right? President
That's right.
of Underdog Game Studio, if I got that right.
That's
Okay,
right. Yeah, I manage the processes by which we make games and participate in the design. That's the
awesome.
basic.
And it says here that you have a PhD in neurobiology. Uh,
That's true.
that's pretty interesting. So how does that relate to board games, and how do you use your, neurobiology degree to help create games, or do you even draw on those skills at all?
Yeah, I draw on my skills from my from I wouldn't say skills, but knowledge from neurobiology, like so much, like way more than I think even I would have anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because so much of making a good game, like a lot of like sort of like novice designers will think of making a good game as mostly about math,
Mm-hmm.
a good strategy game or whatever.
Right.
But like with time, you learn it's actually like that's only part of the equation, and the like the whole rest of it is perception.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the way that you process visual information and turn it into a picture in your mind, which is not a rational process at all.
Right, right.
There's like all these weird contortions,
Mm-hmm.
like data manipulations that your visual perception does to create a picture which is uh, different from the data that's out there in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like understanding those and manipulating them and making visual interfaces that accommodate the weird quirks of the visual system,
Mm-hmm.
like actually helps game design so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I wasn't, when I went into this, I wasn't a very experienced designer. But now I am, and so just with every passing year, I'm more grateful to have had that education.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean neurobiology or whatever is literally the study of the nervous system and brain function, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
being able to apply some of that knowledge to board gaming, and I guess understanding how people think or might react to certain stimuli in games, that might actually give you a leg up, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, so I've played Trekking Through History. I received a press copy from you folks. I think it was about a month or two ago, and we
Okay.
loved it.
Oh, good. Good.
We especially like games that go the extra mile to include some kind of educational value, whether it be in a separate booklet or on the cards themselves. And I think in Trekking Through History, you actually had on the back of your cards just random facts about whatever that period of history was all about. And I
Yeah.
really like that. So I just want to quickly shout that out because
Good.
we really look for stuff like that. I run a family friendly channel, so any
Wow.
chance I get to sort of show off educational games that are also very fun, I'm all for that. So
Yeah.
the game is extremely flashy and fun to play too.
Oh,
Um,
good. Good.
so did you have a hand in trekking through history at all, or?
Yeah, yeah. So, a couple hands in it. So I sort of I'm a sort of like a process designer, I guess you could say. So the process by which we decided to make it in the first place, I
Mm-hmm.
can see. So we had run a Kickstarter campaign for Trekking the World, and we had this big debate about. We came up with like a huge list of potential subject matters that
Mm-hmm.
we could, and then we narrowed it down to five. And then in the pledge manager, we made all of our backers tell us which of the five they most wanted us to make a game about, and more importantly, why.
Mm-hmm.
And then so we got, I don't know, 6,500 answers.
Okay. I
Trekking
can
through history was
I
a
can
lot.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Trekking through history was the most popular one by far. It got like 40% of all the votes. And the other four games shared the other 60% of the votes.
That's cool.
And then and then so but then I had like, I don't know, 2,500 answers or something to read through. And
Bet
we
that was
read through
fun.
them. Yeah, yeah. Well, like getting inside the minds, like really, we read them like the Talmud,
Hmm.
like really trying to understand what is the mind behind this sentence, what is the mind behind this sentence.
Hmm.
So really studied it, and at the end of that, we were convinced that we could make something good
That's
from it.
cool.
So that was the first thing, and the second thing
Hmm.
is also the process by which we designed it. So um, I developed this process, which has become standard for us now. Which I wish I could convince more game designers to do it, because it makes it so much more likely that you're going
Hmm.
to come out with something good. So we had two designers designing Trekking Through History,
Hmm.
but they weren't working on the same game. Each designer would make their own idea of what the game should be,
Hmm.
completely independently. And then at the end of each week, we would come together and have customers play them back to back and do a
Hmm.
compare and contrast. Um, so, a couple great things about this. For the designers, it turns game design itself into a game. Like
Hmm.
on Friday, you want to come with something good so you don't get,
Right.
shot in court, basically.
Hmm.
So, it's inspiring and fun that way. But
Hmm.
also, and this is so, so valuable, it it forces customers to speak negatively about the one that they like
Hmm.
less, in a way that's much more precise than if you just play one game.
Hmm.
So if you just play one game with somebody, people will say like, it's pretty good, and not be able to articulate very much
Hmm.
about like why they felt that way.
Right.
But if you have two, they can say, well, like this other one over here made me feel this because of that, and that was missing in this one over here.
Right. Right.
And that makes the feedback so much more actionable than
Hmm.
if you're just testing one game.
Hmm.
Uh,
Agreed. We play a
yeah,
lot of we play a lot of video games too. So
yeah,
there is a horror genre. I don't know if you've heard of like Phasmophobia or other ghost games, but we
yeah.
play a lot of those games. And being able to play one, then play another, then play another, we've often said we wish we could take this element from this game, this element from this game, and this element from this game, and pull them into one game that we would absolutely love. So it sounds like you're
Exactly.
doing something a lot similar there.
Yeah, we get to hear that during development.
Hmm.
And so, uh, I mean, and if so far, like the feedback we've gotten from Trekking Through History is that it's our best game. Like
Hmm.
most people seem to say this, and I think there's a straight line between that reception
Hmm.
and that process.
Hmm. Cool.
Yeah,
It says here that you also have played. Like I was looking at your BGG profile, like Board Game Geek, and I saw that you developed Underdog games, Coconuts, Trekking the National Parks, Trekking the World, and some other trekking games. I've never played those. I guess for interested parties, like, is there a main difference between the national parks and the world or history, or are they completely separate games with their own mechanics, or do they all roughly play the same and it's just a thematic choice? Or
Trekking Through History has completely separate mechanics from the other two.
okay.
The other two, Trekking the National Parks and Trekking the World, share similarities. You could kind of think of Trekking the World as a redevelopment of Trekking the National Parks.
Okay.
I mean, they are different. They have a different sort of feel to them. Trekking the World is a little more gamery,
Hmm.
a little more confrontational.
Okay.
Trekking the National Parks feels a little lighter, a little more family,
Hmm.
but they are very similar.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, but and then Trekking Through History is just completely its own thing,
That's
like
cool.
totally. Yeah,
Like I said, we really enjoyed trekking through history. We do want to play with that extra expansion at some point that came with it, the
yeah,
time travel one, the expansion that was optional. We eventually
yeah.
want to get to that one. Do you have any like thoughts on that? Was that just an extra that you threw in, or did you sort of design it hoping that the customers would use it because it actually adds a lot more to the game than the core game does? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, well, it actually started off as a Kickstarter exclusive,
Mm-hmm.
but then the feedback we were getting about it was like, "Oh, this should be standard." Like all the playtesters, like, "You really need to include this as a standard thing."
Okay.
So we talked to the backers, and they were like, "That's okay." Um,
Okay.
and so we did it. This leads me to two conclusions. I don't we don't we're, we don't want to run Kickstarters again, because did not like being put in that dilemma, like
I see what you're saying, because you don't
we
want to.
promised we
Right,
promised an exclusive, now it's not an exclusive. That feels awful.
right.
So that's thing number one. That's a key reason why we're not doing Kickstarters anymore.
Wow.
But then thing number two is we don't want like what we want to make games. One of our main design constraints is we want to make games that gamers and non-gamers can enjoy together.
That's the challenge.
Yeah, which is like
Yeah.
which is so hard to do,
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought like, if you include something where you can like tune the complexity of the game for the situation that you're in,
Right.
that like helps a little bit with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is something we're going to be doing pretty consistently with our future games as well for that
That's
reason.
cool. I always look for a game that's easily moddable.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people, and a lot of people hate me for it, but I love house rolling to make the game better or just more fair or even easier in some cases. Like I know developers have their own way of designing games and they have their own vision as to how hard the game should be. But I'm
Yeah.
always looking for that game that I'm just going to remove this card from the game so that it's not as challenging. Or I'm going to
Yeah.
give us an extra action than normal so that we have a better chance of beating this cooperative game together. Something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
so
awesome.
I, I'm always looking for stuff like that. And this game seems to be fairly moddable too from what we've played so far.
Yeah.
Um,
Have you been you've been playing it without the time
Without the
warp?
times, yeah, so far. I covered it on camera, and we've played it just the core set, but I do eventually want to try the time travel one too. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. Good. Yeah. And so far you say you're liking it.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's definitely we have a top 10 every year. So we're
Okay.
probably going to be including that in our list for sure because
Oh,
we
awesome.
the color, the gameplay mechanics, I love that you have a separate board and depending on what cards you take, you get tokens that you can put on that board to help you get extra points. And then you've got the time management aspect where you're moving your stopwatch around a clock and if you time it just right and you land on the 12 or whatever it is, you get some extra time points or whatever it is. So I love all the different things, but it's not overly complicated. It's not like Twilight Struggle where I'm sitting there, oh my god, what do I do next? That kind of thing. So I
Yeah.
love that. I love games that are easy to play and easy to understand and easy to get into, but they also look very flashy. But there's also some thought that you have to put into it. It's that light medium difficulty curve that it's that sweet spot for me. So we really enjoyed it. So
That's
awesome.
great to hear. Yeah, it's always when we publish, we put so much work into the game,
Hmm.
but we don't know if it's going to be received well until it goes out into the world. It's like just throwing your baby out into
Right. You're hoping for the best, right? Yeah, right.
yeah,
Uh-huh. So I have not played Her Story yet. I don't have a copy, but I'm hoping to get one at some point. Um, is
can
Her
send you one.
Story different than Trekking, or how does
Yeah.
Her Story play, and what are the main
Yeah,
mechanics with that one?
it's quite different. So first, it is 8 and up instead of 10 and up.
Okay.
Um, Early on, we were aware that a lot of parents were going to want to play this with their kids.
Mm-hmm.
So we made it 8 and up. But that also created a big challenge because we still wanted to create a game where if you're into strategy, there's something there for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that made the already difficult thing about like having non-gamers and gamers play together
Right.
even more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, the market will tell us if we've succeeded, but that was the sort of big thing that we did. And the mechanics are again very different, although there are certain constraints that carry over for all of our games.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so each of our, at least major games, they're centered around big oversized cards with like really beautiful art on
Mm-hmm.
them.
Mm-hmm.
And the back, stories and information about whatever the content of the front
Right.
is.
Mm-hmm.
And so her story is like that as well.
Okay.
Uh, each card has a historical figure on it with like the story of her life a little bit on the back.
Okay.
Um, and you are an author. The player
Mm-hmm.
takes the role of an author writing a book about remarkable women of history.
Cool. Okay.
And it's set collection combined with engine building. So that's another big difference. There's
Oh,
not
Love engine
engine
building.
building in our other games.
I love them.
What'd you say?
I love engine building. That's one of my favorite mechanics.
Oh,
Splendor.
good,
It
good.
started with Splendor, and then when I got hooked on engine building there, I was like, I took off. So I love engine building. That's awesome.
Okay, good. That's great. Yeah. That was actually the reason that we chose to do it. We were thinking like, okay, what kind of game could we make that could have that was 8 and up, but also have some chance of giving something that a gamer can get their hooks into.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we came around to engine building.
Okay.
Specifically because, and the great thing about engine building is if you do it right, the first turns of the game are incredibly easy for anyone to understand because there is no engine yet.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And when your turns start incredibly simple, or they can.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Suburbia was like that. Suburbia is a city building game, and it's easy to start with, but when the city is almost completely mapped out toward the end, you're trying to account for every tile that's out there. Does this
yeah,
affect this? Does this affect this? How many points do I get? How much money? It's just a nightmare. The accounting of it becomes tedious toward the end of the game, you
yeah.
know. So I can understand what you're saying there.
Yeah. Now, we didn't want that to happen.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it definitely doesn't. Like the engine, it's very light engine building. It's not, you're not going to have some giant Rube Goldberg
That's
contraction.
good. That's good. Yeah.
Um, but it is so far, it seems like if you want to introduce somebody to engine building,
Mm-hmm.
like this is the way to do it. It's because it's like very pared down engine building.
Cool. Does each character, or I guess the women through history, or that you're collecting her story, does each one have like a power or icons that somehow add to your tableau, or
Yeah,
what?
about two-thirds of them have their own special power,
Mm-hmm.
and then 1/3 of them are just worth lots and lots of points.
Okay, gotcha.
You'll end up with a tableau of 8 cards at the end,
Okay,
and statistically, 2/3 of them will have some kind of power on them, and the others will be just big points.
great. All right.
Yeah.
I guess anything else to say before we wrap up? Like, are you working on anything now? Are you allowed to say about what's coming up in the pipeline? Any new games that you're working on, or expansions,
Yeah.
that kind of thing?
Yeah, right now we're working on Trekking the Cosmos.
Ooh, all right. I love. I'm a big sci-fi, Star Trek, Star Wars fan, so I'm all for that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Now, because our games are about the real world, there's not sci-fi.
Right. There's no phasers and transporters, but still, I'll take
Yeah, yeah.
it.
It's also true that I think there are plenty of sci-fi games out there, but
Yes.
there are very few games about space as we understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So we can maybe fill that gap a little bit.
That'd be awesome. I mean, you can do a lot of educational stuff with space, whether it be knowledge about planets or, say, the Apollo missions or whatever you come up with. Like, that would be really cool to see. So,
Yeah. So yeah, we're in the middle of it right now. It's always like nerve-wracking because games usually start out really bad. Like every project that I've started at, you start out at some place and you're just like, this sucks. And then every week you make it a little bit better, a little bit better, a little better until
hmm
it starts being good.
hmm
You know,
And then when you
the
think
question
you've
is
got
always
it, there's that one mechanic that completely breaks everything, and now you've got to redesign everything all over again. Yes.
exactly. Yeah. So that roller coaster is like one of the you have to like develop a really thick like emotional defense against the ups and downs of that.
That is a
So,
challenge. There are some developers out there that I'm not trying to downplay anybody, but when it comes to criticism, they take it very personally. Like
yeah.
I critique a lot of games, so I get mixed reactions. There are some developers that love the feedback, and I love talking to them because I love to provide the feedback. And then there are those that hate it, like they take it all personal, like, and I'm just trying to improve your game. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's cool that you're open to that kind of feedback. So
Yeah, in fact, I like if you ever play test with us, would I always feel like playtesters are not harsh enough.
mhm.
Like I want even if my game is great, I still want it to be criticized heavily.
Right, because you learn more about the bad than the good. Like
Yeah, you learn more from the criticism than from the praise. A
right.
lot more. It's not even close,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time. I know you've got plenty of other appointments to get to at some point here.
Yeah.
So as far as like asking about more press copies, do I just continue reaching out to your I don't remember her name, but I spoke to someone about a press copy of her story. Who would be the best person to talk to
Yeah,
about that?
actually, just send me your address and I'll just get you one.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Is your email on your website somewhere? And then,
I don't know, but let me just give it to you now.
okay.
It's
Uh,
nick@underdoggames.com.
okay. Nick at Underdog.
Or you can just paste it into the, chat here.
That
That's
makes
fine too.
sense. Okay, I think I got it. Underdoggames.com. Gotcha. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I hope
Pleasure.
you have an amazing rest of the day.
Yeah, you too.
All
Thanks
right.
for chatting, man.
You
Okay,
too.
bye.
Thanks. Take care.